Welcome to another Better Place Australia podcast. In this case study, we look at the story of a man who is seeking asylum in Australia, and he's in an incident which requires him to pay out a lot of money. Tammy is a senior financial counsellor for Better Place Australia and Financial First Aid. She de-identifies and shares the story and how she assisted this man.
Yeah, so we're talking about a client that's over here on a bridging visa.
Right.
And they're on a bridging visa while they're waiting for their status to be resolved. But unfortunately, they were actually living with their partner in public housing, waiting for this to be resolved. And when I say waiting, we're talking a couple of years. So what happens is every 3 months or so, they go and they have it reviewed, and there hasn't been a firm decision yet. But this visa does not allow them to work, does not allow them to study. So there's no income.
Wow.
Okay.
That's tough.
Yeah, absolutely. They're reliant on family. In this case, he was living with his partner. Now, in some cases, you can apply to get a status resolution payment, but it's only if you have absolutely no access to funds and you have nowhere to live and all that sort of thing, and you need some money for that. In this case, he was with his partner. But what had happened is he had been driving. It was his partner's car, and unfortunately, he had a car accident, which was his fault, and he now had an insurance claim. So he presented at a community legal service, and I do outreach from there once a week.
Right.
And they referred it into me because he had a legal letter, which is really quite scary, for people who and he spoke very limited English. We did get an interpreter to really explain what this is all about. But he did have the idea that, it was from the car, and he said it was my fault. And but I have no money. I can't pay this, and my partner lives in public housing, and it's just not possible. And so what I presented, it was now a debt collector. So there was the initial insurance company who sent the letter, and then they sent it on to a debt collector.
Right.
So to the debt collector, I kind of explained there's not really a point in giving you a budget because the budget is zero, because there is no income due to his visa. He's not entitled to any payments in Australia. So it was providing a copy of that visa.
Right.
That was essential in this case, and a copy of bank statements in his name, which, he did have bank account in his name, and he was being given a little bit of money, which was clearly coming from his partner, for whatever it was. Well, they would transfer just a little bit of money to help them buy something, whether it was to pay for their phone, pay for their phone or something like that.
From
that was
back
in
their
their
home
name.
country or something.
No, from their partner they were living with here in Australia, because their partner did have residency here in Australia, and they were on government benefits. So we still had to explain that yes, there is a partner, but that partner only gets enough for them. Okay, it's not like they were getting extra because they had somebody that wasn't getting anything. They only had enough for themselves, and they lived in public housing. And we presented that to ARL and the RACV in a way that we say there's simply no income. They have no assets. There's no capacity to pay this insurance. At the time I was doing it, the visa actually was about to expire because, as I said, he has to go through this every 3 months.
Right.
So we had to provide an updated one, which did cause a little bit of a delay. But once they got that, they replied back to us, and they have released the client from repaying the debt, which is great because you could tell that the person was very stressed about this. And one of the things we do often get confronted with is people think that perhaps they're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
And we make sure that they know that they cannot be imprisoned because of this debt.
Yeah.
So not to worry, and that we'll work with them and ask for a waiver under the circumstances that you just don't have any income. The visa was extended, but again, just for another 3 months. So, he has to keep going through this process while he's still seeking asylum here in Australia.
Wow. But I'm sure that he was extremely happy that you were able to...
Absolutely. It's a big relief for them to think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And now they don't have a car. Unfortunately, the car was written off as well. And, that's bad enough, isn't it? And thankfully nobody was hurt. Again, nobody was hurt. Unfortunately, don't have the car, but, don't have capacity to repay this debt. And it's putting forward all that and the visa issue as well, saying my client would like to work.
Yeah. That's Tammy, Senior Financial Counsellor for Better Place Australia and Financial First Aid. You can access free financial counselling from Better Place Australia if you live in a funded area in Melbourne or Geelong. Now, there's a long list of suburbs that this applies to. So to find out if you live in a funded area, visit the Better Place Australia website or the Financial First Aid website and do a search for funded areas. Financial First Aid is an initiative of Better Place Australia.